attend our bi-monthly meeting of the Assurance, Audit and Risk Committee, held hybrid meeting and conducted remotely via WebEx and physically in the Guildhall Chamber on Monday the 22nd of September at 4 p.m. and I will pass to Denise for the attendance and apologies.
Thank you, Chair. Alderman Darren Guy. Alderman Keith Kerrigan. Councillor Raymond Barr.
Online, Denise.
Councillor Amanda Clark. Sure. Councillor Caitlin Deaney. Councillor Gary Donnelly. Councillor Paul Gallagher.
And sure.
Councillor Christopher Jackson. Councillor Fergal Leonard. Councillor Patricia Logue. Councillor Patrick Murphy. Councillor Declan Norris. Councillor Martin Riley.
Here.
Councillor Brian Tierney. Thank you, members. Thanks, Chair.
Councillor Alderman Guy is online, but
Yeah,
he has
online there.
Is online.
Thanks,
Thank you. Right, members. Item 3 is the broadcasting statement. I would like to remind everyone physically present at this meeting or in attendance remotely that this meeting will be broadcast live to the internet and will be capable of repeated viewing. This broadcast may be terminated or suspended in accordance with our protocol. Due to your attendance at this meeting, you are consenting to being filmed and to the use and storage of these items for broadcasting or training purposes and for the purpose of keeping historical records and making those records available to the public. Members and approved speakers are reminded to only have their mics and cameras on while speaking at the meeting and to use the chat facility to highlight a request to speak. A copy of the Council privacy notice may be found on the Council website www.derrystheban.com. Item 4, members, is a declaration of members' interest. If anyone has a declaration which they wish to raise at this stage or can raise it as we come to the item. I don't see any online. Denise, as we had stated, I will declare in regards to the audit of the North West Regional Waste Management Group. In that regard, members, I am moving on then to item, sorry, Councillor Norris.
Sorry, I'm on that group as well.
Members, in regards to chairperson's business, I don't have anything and we don't have anything for that. Nope, that's grand. So move on to item 6, which is the matters arising from the open minutes of the committee held on Monday the 23rd of June. If anyone, Rona?
Thank you, Chair. Just in relation to item on page 7 at the top of the page about the peer review of internal audit, and it makes reference at the bottom of the first paragraph there in relation to myself recommending a private meeting between the Chair, myself and the auditors at least once a year. Just maybe for correction, I wasn't suggesting that the meeting was with me, the Chair and the auditors. It really was the audit committee in its totality with the Chair and the auditors. If I could just get that corrected, that'd be great. Thank you, Chair.
Yep, that'll be amended. Thank you very much, Rona. Anyone else with any matters arising? Don't see anybody, and I don't see anybody online. In that regard, members, we will move on to item 7, which is the financial statements for 24-25, and that'll be Alfie taking us through that.
Thank you, Chair. Members, the report is for you to approve our financial statements, which include our annual governance statement for the financial year 24-25. The key elements within those financial statements are obviously the outturn report and the governance statement. You will recall that the financial outturn report was approved by our Governance and Strategic Planning Committee back in June 2025. That reported a small 245k surplus position, of which 200k was transferred to our capital fund and the balance to our district fund to ensure it remains within relevant guidelines. In addition to this, members, the draft annual governance statement was approved by this committee back in June 25 also. So members, since that time, the financial statements have been subject to audit by Summer NI on behalf of the Northern Ireland Audit Office, and Christine and Peter are here today to present their findings. I believe, members, the audit report is a fully clean audit report, which obviously is a very positive outcome, but Christine and Peter will present their findings in that regard. After passing over to them, members, the recommendation before you today is to approve the financial statements for the year ended 31st of March 25. Thank you.
Thank you. Chair and members, you have the draft report to those charged with governance in the papers. Section 1 of the report it has a number of key messages. I'd like to start just by thanking Alfie and finance colleagues for their support throughout the audit and get us to the position where we are today. As Alfie says, the proposed audit opinion is an unqualified audit opinion without modification. So that's very pleasing to report. There are no misstatements in their accounts, to the first draft of the accounts to the final draft. There was no misstatements, and there are no priority one findings within our audit report today. And there's some comment on proper arrangements within the report, and that we've led to a priority recommendation, which we'll come to. Status of the audit today is that we are largely complete. And we're just waiting on one piece of correspondence coming through from the component auditor, but that won't impact on our opinion. And there are a number of messages within the executive summary of the report just to confirm that we remained independent to deliver the audit and how we managed personal data throughout the audit. The performance improvement audit will come as a separate report later in the year, and that's in line with the audit timetable that we presented in the audit strategy. And then today, members, there are some actions for the Audit Assurance Audit and Risk Committee, and that's to review the findings in this report, including both the letter of representation and the draft audit certificate. Section 2 of the report is just confirming that there was no changes to the audit scope that we presented in the audit strategy. And Section 3 of the report is our response to significant risks. So members will note that there were 3 significant risks as part of our audit strategy and planning. The first one being management override of control, and I can report that we had no issues arising from our audit work with regard to management override of control. Likewise, with the risk of fraud and revenue recognition, we have no issues to report, and you can see the response to the audit work that we completed. Significant risk 3 was the risk of going concern status of the City Derry Airport. Members may recall that in the past there has been an emphasis matter within your audit opinion, and this year that there is no emphasis matter being proposed within the audit opinion. And we have received sufficient and appropriate audit evidence around the going concern status and positive assurance on the funding position of the City of Derry Airport. Section 4 of the report is just some responses that we're required to respond to as your auditors. So we've set out our commentary on the financial reporting, accounting policies, accounting estimates, going concern, financial statement disclosures, the narrative report, the remuneration report, the governance statement. And you can see there that there was all just minor changes within the documents that you presented to this committee. In terms of legality, propriety, losses, internal control and related parties, you can note there that we have just one issue around some declarations of interest, and that's included within finding 1. In other matters, there are two points to highlight. The first one's to do with the positive VAT reclaim. You can see the balance that's transferred into the accounts numbers this year. And then just our conclusion on the planning reviews, which came in front of this committee throughout the year. There are a number of audit recommendations. So finding 1 is to do with the related party declarations. And you can see that management have accepted our recommendation with regard to taking that action forward. Finding 2 is to do with loan agreements with the Great Britain councils. And you'll note there that recommendation has not been accepted by management. And we have sought additional disclosure within the letter of rep and additional disclosure within the credit risk as a result of this finding. Finding 3 is to do with proper arrangements, and we have 3 sort of observations on the proper arrangements work. First one to do with prompt payment, the second one to do with HR related policies, and the third one to do with the monitoring and the completion of cyber training. Appendix 1 of the report is the proposed letter of representation. And Appendix 2 of the report is the draft audit certificate. And I'll pause there, Chair, and take any comments from members.
Members, anyone wish to pass comment at this stage, or how do we wish to? Rona, go on ahead.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Christine, for the report. I just wanted to say, first of all, well done to the finance team. Alfie and all his team have done an excellent job preparing the accounts. I had the pleasure of a pre-meeting to deal with any questions that I would have. And I would say a big thank you to Alfie. It's very clear there's so much work has been done. I got sent the detailed financial outturn report and it was excellent, I have to say. So it was very informative for me in seeking answers to different questions. I do have 2 or 3 questions to ask. But first of all, I would say the report to those tasked with governance is an excellent report, a great outcome for the council and for the officers, and clearly evident that there's been so much hard work done to get a situation of no misstatements and no priority ones, and the removal of the emphasis of matter is an excellent result for the council. So well done to everybody there. I do have a couple of questions, if I may, Chair. The first one is in relation to the exchange loss going forward in relation to SEUPB projects, because I know there's been a change in the peace process or the Peace Plus, and just there's some exposure potentially there, and what level of risk you would consider that. Also in relation to the non-domestic revaluation and the level of challenges which has seriously gone up due to the process being carried out by LPS, and just there's a number of risks that have been identified. And is there anything further council can do to mitigate those, particularly maybe discussions with LPS in relation to how the reval is being done, etc. Because at this stage they've been doing a number of revalues over the years, and they should have a pretty good idea of what they're doing. And also with LPS, the level of bad debt that's been building up over the years as well. So just some information about that. But the key question is really in relation to what Christine has just referred to, Chair, in relation to the loan agreements with GB councils and the recommendation not being accepted as such, perhaps maybe more, it's been noted, and there's clearly a lot of work being done, a lot of exploration to see what exposure the council is at in relation to these types of loans and the potential for those loans not actually taking place. Should these further restrictions be put into place as part of the process being suggested, and just to seek more information from Christine and maybe NIAO as to the impact on that for the council and maybe even other councils, because they all do this kind of lending. And maybe from Alfie's perspective, albeit there's a very fulsome response, but it is a little unusual to get a non-accepted recommendation. Just like to explore that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Bruno. Christine, do you want to reply?
I'll come back first just to give a little bit more information on the recommendation. So obviously the council and the other council arrangements, so there's no agreement between those 2 bodies. There is an agreement with an intermediary, and we've seen the conditions and the loan conditions around all of that. It's just unusual not to have something between the loaning council and the borrowing council. And again, you know, we've assessed our recommendation based on where the risk lies, and we've asked for additional disclosure within the accounts and within the letter of rep in terms of the council not accepting a high level of risk, and we're content with management's response in that regard.
Thank you. So I think there's 3 questions. So the first one's around exchange loss on Peace Plus and things like that. So I think we've got a really good outcome in that we have negotiated our letter of offer this time in sterling. So that removes that risk, and that's a tremendous outcome because it's not easy getting it changed to sterling. So I think that removes that risk. The non-domestic revaluation, unfortunately, and the bad debt issue, unfortunately, as you're aware, Rona, that Land and Property Services basically control these 2 aspects, and we're at their mercy to some extent. We have quarterly meetings, we can advise our concerns, but we're very much at their mercy in terms of rating policy, in terms of the revaluation process, and in terms of how they're performing in relation to collecting bad debt. What we can do as a council is ensure we're properly provided for it. So whilst it wouldn't be something we could account for as a provision within our accounts, we have a financial contingency reserve within our accounts, which provides us with at least some cover should there be an exceptional amount of revaluation appeals or should there be an exceptional amount of bad debt write-off in any year. So I think it's important we continue to push LPS absolutely to try and see progress on it. As you know, the revaluation's every 3 years, so there's another revaluation coming up for our next year's rates process, so that'll be important as well. So in relation to the loan agreements, as you've highlighted, it's obviously unusual not to accept. The reason for non-acceptance is because I believe there's nothing else we can do as a council, and to accept the recommendation would mean it's basically saying we need to do more. So I'll just highlight, obviously we've done a lot of work as a council in terms of our treasury management policy, basically to ensure that not only do we have a diversified and secure investment portfolio in place, but also one that where we can say with confidence that all our investment entities have robust environmental, social and governance arrangements in place. Council investments are really highly recommended by our Treasury advisors as part of that because they're AAA rated, and in the very unlikely event of a default, we would be able to make a petition on the rates to recover that money. Local authorities can't borrow for any other reason than to invest in their capital programmes, so again that gives us major assurance in terms of where the money is going. Our response to the recommendation also details the process as to how we put those investments in place, and those are all done via a regulated broker platform. Before being allowed to participate in that platform, you have to go through a detailed financial due diligence process, and part of that is the broker assessing all the council's financial position. And once eligibility is granted, each council is then required to sign up to detailed terms and conditions, which obviously include the requirement to repay the loan and the amount of interest whenever it matures. As I said, the platform provides detailed financial ratings. Whilst our Treasury advisors don't recommend that we do, we only lend to councils with a minimum 50 rating. So that's going over and above what our Treasury advisors tell us. I think one of the most important things for me, so those terms and conditions are in place, and I've sought advice from our legal advisor who advises me that they're fully enforceable, and I'll read you out his comment now in a minute. So in terms of the requirement for a formal agreement or letter of comfort between the two councils, I think the big thing for me is if we started to impose that, no council would want to just say, we'll go and get the money from some other council. So therefore, we wouldn't be able to lend to councils. It would be something we'd have to remove from our strategy. In terms of the legal advice, I'll just quote a couple of lines from it, but trade terms and conditions are a critical aspect of commercial contracts so that there's clarity and consistency in transactions. The use of standard terms and conditions is common, particularly in the secondary loan market. They provide consistency, efficiency and risk management. It would be very unlikely that a court would hold that any council participating in a trade brokered through the platform would be able to argue that they weren't aware of those terms and conditions, or that they had not been placed on notice of them before entering the transaction. So the conclusion essentially is that our legal advisor is content, having considered the matter, adequate arrangements are in place and nothing further is required, and indeed any such arrangement might be counterproductive. So that's the legal advice we've received internally. Thank you.
Rona.
Thank you, Alfie, for that fulsome response. I'm just reflecting back to what Christine has indicated, that the additional parts have been added into the letter of representation. And just to check, Christine, did you say you're content then that that covers the situation that we've found ourselves in?
Yeah, we're content, and again, we'll take it forward as part of audit planning next year.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Content. Councillor Logue.
Thank you, and thank you to all who were involved in bringing together the financial statements and the report to those charged with governance. I just want to highlight a couple of things that have been already mentioned, and that is, suppose, the positive statement regarding the risk regarding the airport. So we're in a better place there. The VAT reclaim, hopefully that will be successful. We did have a successful outcome in that last year, and I think this year comes to 485,000, so nearly 500,000, wouldn't that be right? Yep. So hopefully we will be successful in that. I do note the planning review and the audit recommendations, and I think the highest one there that we all will be aware of would be the retention of staff and best practice. There's also the issue of parties having their declarations in, which is most important, and I hope I'm not one of the 5 who hasn't done it. And I did highlight here too that non-acceptance of the loan arrangements. I do vaguely recall an item being brought to council about that, Alfie, when we were agreeing that. I think I do, but maybe just a wee recap, Pipper. I think I would appreciate that. Although you did give, you know, a very good explanation and a verbal explanation there, and we and Sinn Féin are supportive of the recommendations of what has come in this paper, but just for a wee refresh on that particular item, I do think would be beneficial. And I just want to, the last thing that I noted was the proper arrangements and the two recommendations made there on the purchasing orders, and I suppose a very important one of authorising invoices over 20 grand was arranged that that would be done by a different arrangement. And I just note, I think one was authorised, I think it was 24, 25, maybe 26,000, but if we could just revert to what was agreed, 20,000, and then the new arrangements that we agreed. But overall, well done, and thank you to all involved. Thank you. And I just want to recommend the report.
Thank you, Councillor Logue. I'm just minded here, Christine, do you want to continue with, there was another side, you're content that you're completed your end of things?
Chair, I'm finished.
Yeah. Just for one point of clarification, and it might well, in my mind, it may well provide additional assurance, and it will be a query, I suppose, to yourself, Christine, and then to Alfie. In regards to the item which was not accepted, in regards to the loan between councils, would that have been an item which would have been put on the recommendation on effectively all of the 11 councils' audit reports? No. Or has it been a one that has it been accepted by any of the councils if it has been scheduled anywhere else? Peter?
Yes, Chair, it is included in 3 councils. As far as we're aware, they're the only 3 councils. That was confirmed by the other audit managers, and ordinarily not accepted. I think we just felt we are happy with the responses, Christine says, but we just felt we wanted to bring it to the attention of council, but we are satisfied with responses. Thank you.
Thank you very much. In that regard, members, we're content with this item. So we are, Councillor Logue there. Any other questions, members? Anyone else wishes to raise anything? I don't see anyone online. Anyone else in the chamber wish to raise in regards to item 7, the financial statements? Or item 7, and it's 5.1. It is the, we require a proposer and a seconder, and I'm assuming Councillor Logue here is proposing in regards to the approval of the financial statements, including the annual governance statement for the council for the year ended 31st of March 25. And I'm deeming that Councillor Logue is proposing. Do I have a seconder, members? Councillor Norris. And we're content in regards to that item. Thank you, members. Yeah, members, because it has been touched on in regards to the, if I find the right wording of it, the report for those charged with governance, members, that has also been dealt with and the discussion, item 8 and 5.1, the recommendation is to endorse the findings set out in the report, including the draft letter of representation and audit certificate. Can I have a proposer? Councillor Logue is willing to propose. Do I have a seconder, members? Councillor Norris. Sorry, Councillor Clark, I just missed you. So, members, are we content in that regard with item 8 also? I don't see any dissension. That's grand, members. We will move then to item 9, which is the internal audit report.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to update members on the internal audit work completed within Derry City and Strabane District Council in the period July to September 2025. The following audit work has been finalised recently. North West Region Waste Management Group for the 24-25 financial year, attached at Appendix C, and other internal audit work. So if we start with the North West, the purpose of this audit is to provide the Assurance Audit and Risk Committee and senior management with an assurance on the adequacy and effectiveness of internal control over North West Region Waste Management Group for the 24-25 financial year. This audit was carried out as part of the agreed internal audit plan of work for 25-26. Internal audit reviewed North West Region Waste Management Group expenditure, income including credit control, budgetary control and governance arrangements in place, and we followed up progress on previous internal audit recommendations made. Based on the audit work carried out, the controls in place over North West Region Waste Management Group provide satisfactory assurance that the system objectives will be achieved. This is the highest assurance level achievable. Internal audit is satisfied that the internal systems and controls are adequate and were operating effectively at the time of the audit. Purchase orders, including a description of services, were in place for payments reviewed as part of audit testing. Appropriate segregation of duties had been applied and the payments reviewed, and all invoices were correct. In addition, testing confirmed compliance with procurement requirements and timeliness in the payment of invoices paid by North West Region Waste Management Group. Internal audit is also satisfied that income due to the group is identified, invoiced and used for the purposes intended, and appropriate budgetary control and governance arrangements are in place. Internal audit have made 2 recommendations to further strengthen and improve the control environment going forward. This included one priority 1 recommendation in relation to clarifying the authorisation process for invoice values above 20,000. Of the 7 outstanding recommendations made in previous internal audits, 2 are now fully implemented and 3 partially implemented. For the other 2 recommendations, internal audit are unable to confirm the level of implementation, as there have not been sufficient payments made since issue of the last internal audit report in December 2024 for testing to be undertaken. This is because the volume of business undertaken by the group is in decline, given that all the major procurements have now been completed. Internal audit noted that management have responded positively to all the recommendations. A summary of recommendations made, together with management responses and implementation dates, is included in the report. Other internal audit work, just to make members aware that the peer review of Lisburn and Castlereagh City Council is now complete, and work is ongoing in relation to the completion of a gap analysis against the Institute of Internal Auditors' new Global Internal Audit Standards and the new application note entitled Global Internal Audit Standards in the UK Public Sector. This will be completed as soon as practicable, with the results reported to a further Assurance Audit and Risk Committee. Internal audit continued to be available across the Council to carry out reviews of financial, governance and operational arrangement as required. There are no implications as a result of this business. It is recommended to seek members' comments in the internal audit report. I'm happy to take any questions from an audit perspective, and management are here today to take any questions from an operational perspective relating to the North West Region Waste Management Group. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Deborah. Councillor Rogue.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the audit team for carrying out this audit. I suppose, first of all, I have to say I went ahead of myself, whatever I have my notes written. The purchasing orders and the invoice over 20,000 relates to this item, so sorry about that. If that can be taken out of the record for item 8, 7 and 8, and just put under the record regarding this item, please. Thank you. Sorry about that again. And I would just like to recommend this item.
Thank you, Councillor Rogue. And as I say, this is the item which declare an interest as regard a member of North West Regional Waste Management Group, as is Councillor Norris, and I will bring you in now, Councillor Tierney. But I do note in regards, there is the one issue there in regards to the invoices in excess of 20,000 there, but I do note, to be fair to the officers involved there, it is quite difficult to get a meeting in the North West Regional Waste Management Group. There have been many meetings called, and many times there's had to be postponements because there hasn't been quorum. So as I say, it has been difficult. So as I say, there's just been maybe occasions that the officers just have had to go on with things in regards to deadlines and that. So as I say, I wouldn't, but as I say, it's dealt with in the report. But that's just a comment. Councillor Tierney.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the report. Out of the 7 outstanding recommendations made previously, 2 are unable to be confirmed whether they have progressed, 2 are fully implemented, and 3 are only partially implemented. Why would they be only partially implemented? Can we get a reason behind that? Because whilst I understand the 2 that you can't confirm, and I get why you can't confirm them. There's no reason or rationale why there are 3 which are partially implemented. Thank you.
We'll bring Deborah in first and then Connor.
In relation to the partially implemented one, they related to 3 different areas. One was in relation to completion of purchase orders, indicative pricing. So the testing showed that purchase orders that we reviewed now included a description, but they didn't all include indicative pricing. So that part of it in relation to including the description was implemented, but the indicative pricing wasn't. So that's why that one was partially. The second was in relation to completion of purchase orders, goods receipt. So there was limited testing that could be undertaken because, as we said, the amount of business undertaken since the last audit report hasn't been a lot because obviously the waste infrastructure and the major procurements are all undertaken by this stage. There was one new purchase order that we reviewed that evidenced goods receipt, but obviously we'd like to see, you know, on the balance of profitability from an audit perspective, we'd rather see just more than one to be able to close that off. And then thirdly, in relation to the promptness of carrying out processes for the recruitment of monies, there've been other payments. There've been improvement in the processes. However, so there's different payments. There's ones regarded as other payments. So they're one-off payments for maybe, you know, consultants maybe are engaged to undertake various pieces of work. So there was improvement in relation to those type of payments in relation to the promptness of carrying out the processes. However, for the normal running costs, the memo raised was still between 19 and 40 days after the period to which it relates. So again, one part of it was addressed, but the other wasn't, which is why it was partially.
We'll bring Connor on there as well if he wishes to comment.
Yep, thanks for that, Chair. I think Deborah has covered the key issues with it. In terms of the business of the Northwest Group, the 3 major procurements are now complete, and the, I suppose, volume of business conducted over recent times and probably into the near future will be relatively minor and relate mainly to, I suppose, housekeeping, things like insurances and so on. Again, in terms of the comment with regard to you know, putting adequate costings against some of these invoices, some of these are for professional services, and it's difficult when you're procuring that service to say you know, what extent of advice and guidance you will need. These relate to specialist procurements. And whilst we put an estimate against it, it's been the case that where issues have arisen with regard to procurements, we've required additional services. So those in turn generated additional invoices related to the initial purchase order. And with regard to the last one, in terms of prompt payments, we're a small team. I have 1 admin officer and 1 waste officer. And where people are off on leave or sickness or so on, it's unfortunate but inevitable that there may be slight delays in payments. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Connor. Councillor Tierney, do you wish to come in again?
Yes, Chair, thank you. And thank you both for your answers there. I understand what you're saying was part of it we're able to capture, and then the other part we're not, because of, and it almost sounds to me as if it's because of we're in a fast moving environment, and as Connor has outlined, it's a small team. Would it be the case that in some of these recommendations that internal audit, for want of a better word, are setting the bar slightly too high, and then as we move on, it's coming around to catch us and then becoming, again, for want of a better word, a black mark against us because we're unable to provide the detailed information because we're moving so quickly in a fast-paced environment? If you understand that, please.
Yep, thanks very much for your question. I don't necessarily think that from an internal audit perspective, the problem is fast moving environment. I think it's more the fact that this audit was undertaken later in the year, last financial year, and then just because the number of payments overall have been slowing down for the Northwest Group because the infrastructure, you know, that infrastructure is going to be changing going forward. So there's less procurement undertaken. So there's just not as many invoices for us to sample.
If you don't mind, if I come in on that as well, I think it's a fair question. But I think in terms of internal audit, I think we do want internal audit to keep that bar very high. I think the issue is where we have an issue like this, as long as the management response is acceptable and the circumstances have been explained, I think that's probably the most appropriate way.
Members, it is open for decision there, but Councillor Loke has proposed that item. Do we have a second content? Councillor Tierney, thank you very much. Members, we'll move on then to item 10, which is the Health, Safety, Wellbeing Committee update for September 25. And that's Denise.
Yep, thank you, Chair. Members, the purpose of this report is to provide you with an update on the health and safety management systems and processes in place within the Council, following the Corporate Health and Safety Wellbeing Committee meeting, which was held on the 16th of June, and also to seek your continued support and endorsement for the health and safety management systems in place within Council. Members, you will note from the report and the appendices attached that a number of key matters were discussed at the committee meeting, including the objectives and targets, the progress on those, and they're all detailed in the covalent reports there. A very detailed discussion about compliance training. As you know, it's a key focus of the organisation in terms to ensure that everyone is appropriately trained. The internal audit processes, the accident and incidents statistics, and a number of other key strategic projects, members, including hand, arm vibration, fumes assessment, traffic management controls, and our new health and safety hub as well. So a lot of discussion, members, in a number of areas. It's all detailed there for you. And just to bring to your attention, members, that we have another external audit due to take place on the 6th and 7th of October. So everyone's working hard now to ensure that all the systems and processes continue to be effective for the audit so that we can continue to obtain the ISO 45001 accreditation. The sites to be audited will be the Strand Road building and also Templemore Sports Complex. Members, happy to take any questions or comments on any of the reports that are attached. Thank you.
Members, any questions for Denise, or if not, we're asked to endorse the systems and process in place throughout the organisations of. Sorry. Oh, sorry. Fergal, go on ahead.
Thanks very much, Chair. First of all, I want to acknowledge that there's an awful lot of work goes on in the health and safety department in the council, and such a wide range of work and affects an awful lot of people. I would like to ask a couple of questions, if that's possible. And I know there are still some raids there, and I can understand the raids in terms of catching up training with people. I know it's always very difficult to get staff, but there are some red indicators there in terms of risk assessments. And that report, if I'm reading it right, was up until March 25. So we're 6 months into this year now. Would them risk assessments, etc., been carried out at this stage? Just looking at page 107 in the report, there are just a wee bit of concern about on that page. And I suppose what's triggered me thoughts is, I know in our neighbouring county there was very sadly and regrettably, there was an accident involving a piece of equipment. I'm not saying that what totally contributed to it or not, but it's really important that all our equipment and our vehicles, that everybody's properly trained and their risk assessments are up to date. And finally, sorry for asking a lot, but I'll do it all at once. Is there, in the 9 radar accidents that are reported, are there any trends in them? Thank you very much, Denise, and to you, Chair.
Thank you, Fergal. Please.
Thank you, Councillor Leonard, for your questions, and I'll try to answer them as best as I can. And apologies that the Health and Safety Officer is not here today, but he's actually on paternity leave, so I should have passed on his apologies at the start of the meeting. In terms of the red indicators and the risk assessments, Councillor Leonard, those reports would have been produced at a given point in time, and they are continuously reviewed, monitored and updated. The risk assessments are all updated every year. So it's not that the risk assessments are completely out of date or anything, but we have very, very strict procedures in place that they're updated continuously to ensure that all new risks are captured. But all of those risk assessments that would have been on at that point in time would have transferred over now to the new covalent reports for 26-27. And I can double check, but I can assure you that they have probably all been completed now for the 26-27 year. In terms of your page 107, which is the internal audit processes, obviously we've got a very detailed, and this is separate to Deborah and her team, we've got an independent internal audit team who come in and audit our health and safety systems and processes and come up with recommendations. Again, that's a key focus of us to ensure that they are all implemented in a timely manner, and if they can't be implemented, that a progress note is put on as to why they can't be implemented. So again, this report would have also been produced at a given point in time, and we continuously monitor and report these. In actual fact, these are reported to our SLT on a fortnightly basis to ensure that they're reviewed. So there's a huge focus put on these, Councillor Leonard, to ensure, and some of them cannot be delivered within the due date due to circumstances, external circumstances. But what we would always advise is, as long as there's a progress note and an update added to that, to explain the reasons why. And in terms of the RIDORs, at the minute, we're not seeing any significant trends, but we can obviously provide you more details with the RIDORs. We do look at that, but there's no real trends in the RIDORs that are coming through. They're all investigated and reports are produced on all of those, but there's no significant trends. Thanks.
It's a very good point as well, but Councillor Leonard and Chair, thanks for letting me in. I think it's fair to say as well that a lot of these targets are self-imposed by management, that they're not necessarily mandatory targets that we meet something by a certain date. They're self-imposed as targets that we wish to attempt to achieve something by a certain date. The key thing that we monitor through SLT is that if we've set that target, why have we not met it? Is it a critical health and safety issue? If it is a critical health and safety issue, we'll seek to address it immediately. If it's not absolutely critical, then the issue is, why has the date been set in the first instance? What are the mitigations in terms of why it hasn't been met? And what is a more achievable date, and how should that be adequately reflected? So sometimes at the beginning of a year, you may set out to achieve something that's not absolutely critical from a health and safety perspective. It shows up as red on the dashboard, but that's not necessarily a critical health and safety failure. As you can see, over 80% of the actions have actually been met. And I would say in terms of the critical health and safety actions, that's in the very high 90s. So I hope that provides some reassurance for you in respect of the question.
Councillor Leonard, are you content, or do you wish to comment?
No, Chair, no, thank you for the response from both Denise and the Chief Executive. And that was my comment right at the very beginning, that there has been an awful lot of work done, and the majority, by far the majority, are green. So thank you all.
Suppose it's to agree or to re-emphasise John's point. When you read through some of the red indicators, whilst they're self-imposed, and this isn't taken away from the hard work that staff are already doing, a lot of them are easily corrected or easily turned to green. When you look through it, for example, meet with teams monthly to communicate health and safety information. It's not a critical health and safety matter. It's flagging up there red, but a little bit of work would fix that and make it green. And there's other examples as you go through it. A lot of it is not notifying HR that training is up to date. Training is up to date. We just haven't done the last bit by notifying HR that it's there. Again, an easy fix which would turn that red to green. So I think maybe if we could get some type of a report as how we get the reds to green, and how, because I think when you look through that and you're reading and you're seeing the color coded, it looks a lot worse than what it actually is. But when you take the time to read it and understand what it's going to require to turn the red to green, I think you'll see that we're in a lot healthier position than what it appears on that grid. And I think maybe a report on how we go through each department with their red indicators, what is required to turn them to green, and start working through that way. It might give us a better picture of where we're actually at, Chair. Thank you. And if that report has been proposed, I'm happy to second it. If it hasn't been, I'll happy to propose it.
Thank you, Councillor Tinney. Councillor Logue.
Thank you, Chair. And likewise, if it hasn't been seconded, I'll second it. It's good to see that there's been targets agreed, that there's going to be monthly updates gathered, and then they're going to be presented to the quarterly review of health and safety. I think that's a good measure, and training as one of the key objectives. And to finish off, I just want to wish the team well on their forthcoming audit of the BIS 45001. And hopefully it'll be successful. Thank you.
Thank you, members. Do you want to go?
Fair, not to labour the point, but I do think it's important. So it's a very good point again that some of these, it takes very little to turn it from red to green. However, when we reach a cut-off date, I would rather, if we don't have it done, that we report it accurately as not being done and then provide the reason why. That's a much more robust system where you're able to scrutinise actual progress and we are interrogated for the management response. Often, as is the case in processes like this, there's kind of a rush toward the end to try to make sure that things come in under the wire. And I'm not suggesting for 1 minute that we don't maybe try to do that as well. But I think it's really important that we publish where we're at a given time, and then we say what the mitigation is and how we're trying to address that. Some of them are simple, some of them require a little bit of debate, but it's something that we want to ensure there's open and honest, transparent reporting, and that we're accountable for the actions within it.
Sir Norris?
See, when you're breaking down your instance, like at our work, we would break it down like first aid treatment, medical treatment, right up to fatality. Is that the way you break it down? I know it just says instance here, but
Councillor Norris, we obviously have a detailed incident reporting system where all that information is stored on it. So this is only a summary of it, so we can provide you with whatever information you want. But once an incident report is completed, all that information is captured onto the system then, and all the incidents are investigated. So all that information is retained. Yeah.
it's like, as you know, like if it's a wee first aid treatment, if you repeat a lot of first aid treatments, it can lead to medical treatment. If there's a lot of medical treatments, it can lead to fatality. So it's risk, and we're just reading here the amount of incidents and like the 9 things that we reported, there are others, but it's how that risk is taken and how it's actioned, basically.
Through you, Chair, members, we at a directorate level look at that information in a lot of detail, and what we will do then is we'll consider, different campaigns, etc., that we can undertake, and that has over the years been very successful in reducing the types of incidents where we feel there potentially could be some sort of a pattern there. We've done that on a number of occasions, and really, I suppose, obviously, as Denise said, it's discussed at SLT, but we also then discuss it at our senior management teams within each of the directorates and the support services, etc. So, again, it's that's undertaken very regularly and down through the teams then to make sure that we are dealing with those types of issues. And I think so far we've been very, very successful. Obviously, it's something that we have got to keep it as our highest priority at all times.
Thank you, members. In regards to item 10, I'm content it's been proposed by Councillor Tierney and seconded by Councillor Logue, and we're content in that regard at this stage, members. And are we to take a wee look at as Councillor Tierney suggested, of a form of being able to change those reds into greens, or to look at that? Yep, that's grand, members. Item 11, members, is the Health and Safety Wellbeing Policy Update. Please.
Yeah, and members, just the purpose of this report is to seek your endorsement for our reviewed health, safety and wellbeing policy. As members will recall, this comes into committee on an annual basis. The policy has been updated in line with the ISO 45001 management system and all relevant legislative requirements. This time, members, there's very little changes in the policy because it has only been reviewed within the year, but it's there attached for your information and for your endorsement if you're content to do so. Thank you.
Any questions, member? Or if not, if anyone wishes to propose that we endorse the report.
Happy to
Proposed, Councillor.
propose. Chair, oh, sorry.
Yeah, proposed and seconded. Thank you, members. Members, the next two items are open for information. That's item 12, the Audit Committee training for members. Is that Denise was speaking on that one?
Yeah. Yeah, members, as you're aware, we organise training on an annual basis for the members of the Audit Committee. And we're proposing, members, that we maybe just do a brief training session following our committee meeting in November. I think we did that last year following the September meeting, and it was, members found it useful because you weren't coming back in for another date. And obviously Audit Committee doesn't maybe last as long as some of the other committees, so it's good to just stay maybe for an extra hour. There's a few new things, members, that we will need to go through with you. Deborah mentioned earlier about new best practice guidance that we're currently working our way through, in terms of we're doing a gap analysis of it, and we will bring all that to your attention. So if members are content to do so, we'll organise that training following the committee meeting in November. Myself and James and Deborah are happy to do that if members are content. Thank you.
Any comments or just content enough of that, members? Yeah, content. Yeah. Right, members, item 13 is the performance improvement, final annual performance report for 24-25. That's please.
Yeah, members, I don't propose to say too much on this. This is obviously a standing agenda item on our committee meetings. It was already discussed at GSP at the start of the month, and it's to be ratified at full council, but I'm happy to take any comments, members, that you have. But this is really for information because the decision and the discussion took place at the GSP committee. Thank you.
Any comments, members, or we're content? No, so proposed. That's grand. Members, that concludes the meeting. So thank you very much for your time this afternoon, and safe home. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.